Here is the video of the disassembly of the 6065 crosshead. Step 1. Remove the vacuum tube counterclockwise and set on the table. Next comes the die removal. First thing, loosen the 4 bolts. Do not remove them, just loosen them. Using the 2 handles, rotate counterclockwise and pull off the die retainer. Next step, jog the extruder, which will push out the die. Using the material to push out the die. Next, in order to remove the tip from the rear of the head, you take the tip wrench, slide it in, align with the 2 slots on the face, the inside face of the tip. Use the tip sleeve for guide so that it holds the tip wrench in place. Having another person on the other side, as you rotate this, you're going to be able to get that. Rotating that and rotating from the back of the head, you're going to be rotating clockwise, and the tip will come out the front. Once the tip is loose, that's what it is. Next, we're going to remove the die holder retainer and the die holder. Loosen the 8 bolts. And remove. After all the bolts are removed, remove the die holder retainer and set it out of the way. Next, loosen the 4 die holder adjusting screws just enough to remove the die holder. And remove that part and set it aside. Jogging the extruder, the material will push out the wedge ring. Now the wedge ring has been removed with the compound. Clean up around the tip holder and make it free of the compound. Once the wedge ring is removed, next step is using the eye bolt, attach an overhead crane and loosen the clamp both sides of the clamp, because we're going to remove the die holder cartridge and heater. Using a soft rubber mallet, tap on the heads of the hex head bolts to loosen the bottom half of the clamp. Once the bottom is loose, remove the 2 bolts and remove the bottom half of the clamp. Next, using a soft mallet, once again, tap on the top half of the clamp to remove it while the die holder head cartridge is being held under tension with the eye bolt. Once that's free, remove the top half of the clamp. Then swing that piece over to your workbench for further dismantling of removing the heater and the screws. Next, in order to remove the heater, remove the eye bolt, and the 4 die holder adjusting bolts. Once that's done, now remove the heater by removing the 2 bolts that hold the 2 halves together. The opposite side of this heater is hinged, so you only have the 1 set of bolts to deal with. Okay. Once the bolts are off, remove the heater and set it aside. Next, we're going to remove the tip holder of the helicoid retainer and the tip holder adjusting nut. First, you must align the socket head cap screws with the notches in the helicoid retainer. Then remove the 8 bolts that hold that retainer in place and slide it out. Once all the bolts are loose, remove the helicoid retainer. Set aside because we will need it in order to keep the helicoid in place while we remove the tip holder. Once the helicoid retainer is removed, now turning counterclockwise, remove the tip holder adjusting nut and remove. and then set that down. The next step, in order to remove the tip holder, put the helicoid retaining plate back on using just 2 bolts, so that when you are pushing the tip holder out, the helicoid does not come out with it. All that is needed is 2 bolts, and that's all. Now that I've moved back to the front of the head, the next step is to remove the tip holder first, and then the helicoid. Next, in order to do this, what we have to do is now get the hydraulic components and put them together, using the overhead lift once again to support the disassembly tool. What we have now is the assembly of the disassembly tools to remove the helicoid and tip holder. We're going to remove the tip holder first. These parts consist of the hydraulic cylinder adapter, the hydraulic cylinder, the hydraulic cylinder pump, hydraulic cylinder hose, the pusher pad adapter, and the pusher pad tip holder. For the tip holder. There's another piece just like that which we use for the helicoid. Next, insert the tip holder push rod into the tip holder, and then slide the assembly over that, the hydraulic disassembly. Using the upper half of the clamp, place that over the top, tap it down with the rubber hammer.
That's what it says. One and date.
Tap the piece in place. The upper half, clamp half, insert the bolts, and attach the bottom half of the clamp to the top with the 2 bolts. Actuate your cylinder. As the cylinder pushes the tip holder out the back of the head, you'll notice the tip holder coming out. Once you're free of the keyway, then you can pull the tip holder and remove it. Once the tip holder has been removed, the next step is to remove the clamp and the hydraulic disassembly parts and replace the tip holder pusher pad with the helicoid pusher pad. Now remove the tip holder pusher pad and replace it with the helicoid pusher pad. Now, after you've replaced the pusher pad for the helicoid in place, now go back, align that again, put the top half of the clamp in, Tap it down with a soft hammer. Put the bolts in. And secure the bottom half of the clamp.
It's going to be like trying to put.
There we go. Once the disassembly for the helicoid hydraulics have been attached to the front of the head again, now remove the helicoid retaining plate, the two screws that we put in earlier, and remove the plate. Once that is done, the next step is to actuate your hydraulic pump once again. Now you will push out the helicoid. While we're doing this, notice the keyway and the O-ring. It's very important that when you put this back together that the keyway aligns, the key aligns with the keyway in the head cartridge. And now the helicoid has been removed. Retract the hydraulic cylinder and the disassembly has been complete. We will now go to the assembly, basically reversing all of this process. Once you're down to the head cartridge and primary heater, all the parts should be laid out on a bench. Tip holder, helicoid, die holder, head cartridge, all the components, tips and dies, heaters, and so forth. So that you have easy access to everything. Now for the assembly. We have the head cartridge, the O-ring in place. Over the helicoid, we now insert the helicoid into the head cartridge. Please note, for assembly, the head cartridge should be heated to operating temperature, the helicoid at ambient or room temperature for ease of assembly. When installing the helicoid with the O-ring, notice the keyway must line up with the key in the head cartridge. Once you've got the alignment, continue pushing in the helicoid until it seats in the keyway. Once the keyway is aligned, push the helicoid all the way in so that it is in the keyway with the key alignment and the feed hole is all aligned with the flange. Next, after the helicoid is seated, make sure that there's anti-seize on the tip holder and there's a key screwed in, and notice on the inside of the head cart, the helicoid, there's also a keyway. Make sure that those align and you put that all the way in. Make sure there's anti-seize on the threads and make sure that there's O-ring grease on the O-ring. This will make the transition into all the components much easier. All threads should have anti-seize on them to avoid any threads locking up on you. Again, I can't stress enough, you should have the head cartridge at operating temperature, put in the room temperature helicoid, let it soak a few moments, and then put in the tip holder. When you do this, all the components will go together much, much easier. Once you've started the once you've started the tip holder, make sure you put anti-seize grease on all the threads. That will eliminate any seizing of the nut and the tip holder. You should have anti-seize on all threads that go into your head, even the socket head cap screws and hex head adjusting screws. Next, take the tip holder adjusting nut, thread it onto the tip holder. Thread it at least flush with the end of the tip holder. Once you've threaded the tip holder adjusting nut in place about flush with the tip holder, then continue pushing it down until it rests against the face of the helicoid. Now, taking the helicoid retainer, slide it over the tip holder adjusting nut. Make sure you align the slots with the socket head cap screws to get it past the nut, and then put in, make sure there's anti-seize on all the bolts, and put them into the helicoid retaining ring. Next step, thread the vacuum adapter into the back of the tip holder. The back of the tip retainer. Please note that the vacuum attachment will not be shipped with the head attached. It will be shipped separately. Next, take the die holder cartridge and the die holder heater, align it with all of the holes, the adjusting screws, as well as the eye bolt holes. Next, take anti-seize and put on the thread of the die adjusting screws and insert all 4 of those. Do not go all the way through, because you now have to put the die holder inside of that. But insert all the screws.
Joe Chapin.
Once you have got the adjusting screws in place and the eye bolt, then tighten down your heater band. Once we have that assembly put together, now put it back on the eye bolt on your hoist, bring it over to the front of the crosshead, align it with the clamp halves, with the undercut, male and female surface, put the top half in, use a soft hammer and lightly tap it in place. Take the bottom half, slide it in place, and put the 2 bolts in. And tighten. At this time, remember what I've said throughout the whole video, make sure that what we're doing is you have preheated the head in each step so that the new pieces that you put on go on very easily. Once this is in, you're going to let this soak as well. When you are tightening the clamp down, make sure that, as you notice in the video, that each side where the 2 halves come together should be approximately the same gap on both sides. Next, take the wedge ring, slide it in to the die holder, retainer, and the inside of the helical. Once in place, again, when everything is up to temperature and you put in a room temperature helical wedge ring, everything will slide without any difficulty. Next, taking the die holder, take note of the 4 flats, one on top, one on the bottom, left and right. Those align with the die adjusting screws. Once you've got them hand tight, do some rough centering so that you get it as centered at this point as close as possible. Next, taking the die holder retainer ring, insert it in place over the die holder, align the 8 holes, take each bolt, put anti-seize on them, and screw them into place.
His wife's a saint.
What I'm recording, and what we're doing now, as all bolts, they should be torqued to the proper torque, which with the manual that you get with this crosshead and all the other crossheads. Next, take your tip, slide it in place into the threads on the inside of the tip holder. Rotate it. Make sure also that there's anti-seize on the threads. Once you get it in place, rotate it until it stops. Once you get it all the way in, back it off a quarter turn so it will not thermally lock, because you're putting in an ambient temperature or room temperature tip into a heated tip holder. Once that's brought up to temperature, you then can lock it in place. Next, Take your die, slide it in place, line it up flush, take your die retaining ring, slide it over the 4 bolts, rotate it, and tighten those bolts. If you need to adjust gum space or making the tip flush to the nose of the die, that's where you're going to rotate the tip holder adjusting nut on the back of the head. You will move that in or out to make the tip flush at the end. Also note, at this time, neither the tip nor the die or the vacuum tube will be shipped with the head on. Those parts will be shipped with the head but in separate boxes. This concludes the assembly and disassembly of the Jenka 6065 process. One last thing, the heater blanket. You have 2 heater blankets. One goes around the die holder. Remove the eye bolt, put it in, make sure everything fits around and lines up with the adjusting screw hole. One heater blanket goes around the die holder. Again, make sure all the holes line up, including the eye bolt, thermocouple, and 4 adjusting screws. The next heater blanket is for the head cartridge. Goes over the cast heater, and it fits around. And again, make sure that you have room for the thermocouple hole. Both heater blankets are in place, held by Velcro. One fits the head cartridge, the one on the right of this video, and the one on the left is for the die. And again, I can't stress enough, please make sure all the cutouts and holes line up with each of the parts that they need to. Adjusting bolts, thermocouples, eye bolt, as well as the bar and the heater on the cast heater. Now, this concludes the end of the assembly of the Jenka 6065 process.